Talking about future collaborative combat aircraft, CCA, competitions specifically, Kendall added that the Air Force has had preliminary discussions about it with companies involved in the Next Generation Air Dominance, NGAP, program, as well as its Skyborg project. The CCA is one component of a larger collaborative NGAP effort, which also includes efforts to develop next-generation manned fighter aircraft, weapons, sensors, combat management systems and networks, jet propulsion technology, and more. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall revealed that the service is currently in preliminary talks with defense industry partners for a program called Collaborative Combat Aircraft. The program seeks to field one or more types of unmanned aerial vehicles as part of the Next Generation Air Dominance (NGAP) initiative, where the development of the sixth-generation fighter aircraft is located. Kendall envisions having as many as 5 drones fly alongside one sixth-generation aircraft during military operations. Autonomous wingmen play an important role in expanding the flight capabilities of fighter aircraft such as the F-35 and F-16. They are positioned behind or outside leading aircraft in formation to conduct reconnaissance and electronic warfare, or serve as decoys to attract enemy fire. Using the autonomous system as a fighter wingman can reduce military casualties and provide better protection and assistance for fighter jets. They can independently scout and map targets, interfere with enemy signals and electronics, and launch their own missiles to destroy enemy assets. Secret project. Kendall explained that the Collaborative Combat Aircraft program is confidential, with only a few details to be released to the public. However, the Secretary has already given some hints, in particular about companies that are likely to be competitors for the program. "We are talking to several industry partners who are already involved with the NGAP program," he said. The 3 aerospace giants, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman, are believed to be competing for the country's 6th-generation fighter under the NGAP. Kendall mentioned that Boeing's MQ-28 Ghost Bat could be a good testbed for the drone team. The hope is that these planes can be designed to be less survivable and less capable, but still bring a lot of bad stuff to combat in a mix that's very difficult for the adversary to finish and deal with, he stressed. You can even purposely sacrifice some of them to attract fire, if you wish, to make the enemy expose himself. U.S. Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall expects the competition to acquire an advanced unmanned aircraft with significant autonomous capabilities designed to work closely with manned fighter aircraft to begin in fiscal year 2024. Specific details on efforts to acquire these drones, currently referred to by the service as Collaborative Fighter, the possibilities will be limited, as it will be a black secret program. Kendall offered these and other details about the service's collaborative combat aircraft plans during talks earlier today at the 2022 Defense News Conference. The Secretary also made comments on other topics of importance to the Air Force, including expressing cautious optimism about progress in the development of the AGM hypersonic missile 183A after successful flight tests this year and the desire to find potential ways to accelerate the acquisition of its services. New E-7 Wedgedale Airborne Early Warning and Control Aircraft. The Air Force Secretary specifically named the Boeing MQ-28 Ghost Bat drone, originally developed for the Royal Australian Air Force, RAAF, Airpower Teaming System, ATS, program, as one of the possible participants. The Air Force recently revealed that Boeing has brought the MQ-28 to the United States, but did not say whether the service had active plans to test and/or evaluate the design in any way. Kendall said the Air Force had seen a lot of interest from the Australian government, as well as officials in the UK and Japan, in the services. As he has said in the past, Kendall described a notional concept of operation that could see 5 or more drones capable of engaging targets in the air or on the ground with traditional munitions, launching electronic warfare attacks, acting as sensor or communications relay nodes, or simply serving as decoys, all working collaboratively with a single manned aircraft. When talking about the Air Force's new F-15X Eagle II combat jets and the F-15C/D's Eagles they're set to replace earlier this year, Kendall noted that some of the squadrons now equipped with the older Eagles could lose their flying missions altogether. Being able to limit the required capabilities for each individual drone opens the door to great freedom of choice when it comes to the underlying designs, as well as how much they might cost. Sound judgments can be made on whether the requirements are really worth the cost or not, Kendall said. 12. The expectation is that these aircraft can be designed to be less survivable and less capable, but still bring an awful lot to the fight in a mixture that the enemy has a very hard time sorting out and dealing with, even intentionally sacrifice some of them to draw fire, if you will, to make the enemy expose himself. With all this in mind, what an actual CCA competition might look like is unclear, and Kendall indicated that the service is still ironing out the details. Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works recently unveiled an entirely new proposed manned-unmanned ecosystem incorporating multiple tiers of drone designs, which could reflect, at least to some degree, the Air Force's current internal deliberations. Northrop Grumman, by way of its subsidiary Scaled Composites, has presented its own multi-drone concept in the past. However, it is very unlikely that the final CCA acquisition strategy will be a winner-take-all arrangement, given that the Air Force is envisioning a family of CCAs that could potentially be very different in form and function. Leveraging the strengths of different companies could help speed up the development process and reduce costs. The War Zone has noted in the past that a similar approach is likely being applied to the separate development of a new 6th-generation manned combat jet under NGAP. There are also indications that this kind of strategy may already be playing out, at least to some degree, in the NGAP program's next-generation adaptive propulsion, NGAP, advanced jet engine effort. With respect to the manned NGAP combat jet project, it's interesting to note that Secretary Kendall appeared today to walk back earlier comments about it entering a traditional engineering, manufacturing, and development, EMD, phase. He said that developmental work was continuing in this regard after the completion of a preliminary design review process, but not necessarily at the level of a typical EMD effort. In addition, while Kendall has publicly dismissed the idea of using a more novel, iterative approach to the development of the manned NGAP combat jet, he and other Air Force officials have left the door open to doing so with the CCAs. The Digital Century Series concept, first proposed in 2019 by former Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics Will Roper, is one possible development and acquisition model that is often discussed in this context. Digital Century Series, as laid out by Roper, had a heavy emphasis on short development cycles, supported by advances in rapid prototyping and digital engineering, as well as small batch production, all of which you can read more about here. As already noted, the Air Force Secretary also specifically cited Boeing's MQ-28 as an existing relevant platform that could potentially be used for various kinds of developmental and operational test and evaluation work ahead of a formal CCA program. Secretary Kendall has previously said that the MQ-28 could be useful as a risk reduction tool and that ATS would be a technology feeder for developing future Air Force unmanned aircraft. The service has made clear that the Skyborg program, which is centered on the development of an artificial intelligence-driven computer brain and a suite of associated systems that could be used to operate various types of unmanned aircraft, will feed into the CCA effort, as well. The work we are doing in Australia is in partnership with the Australian government, but lessons learned from that project will help inform Boeing ATS as it progresses, and we see applicability of ATS in a range of markets. So, it is not at all surprising that Australia is among the American allies that have expressed interest in the CCA project. A Boeing spokesperson told the War Zone in a statement after we asked for comment on the Skyborg news. The work we are doing in Australia is in partnership with the Australian government, but lessons learned from that project will help inform Boeing ATS as it progresses, and we see applicability of ATS in a range of markets. So, it is not at all surprising that Australia is among the American allies that have expressed interest in the CCA project. There are already indications that the US Air Force and RAF are actively cooperating on secretive aviation projects, which could include unmanned systems, as you can read more about here. British interest is similarly unsurprising given that the UK Royal Air Force, RAF, has been pursuing its own advanced manned-unmanned teaming projects in recent years and is looking to expand that work.